Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. Before I jump into today's video, just really quick for anybody that is watching that is not subscribed, I'm about 100 subscribers away from hitting 2,000. It's not a lot, but it's a milestone that everyone has to climb and get past. So if you guys are watching, please do me a favor. I would ask that you would consider hitting subscribe and drop a like on this also as well. I would greatly appreciate it. Alright, so I made a video similar to this about 2 years ago, back when I had the GT500, and I think it's worth talking about not the same topic, kind of similar to it. Anyone that is in the market to buy a S550, doesn't matter if it's a 2015 first gen Coyote, second gen Coyote, or a third gen Coyote. I guess if you're looking 2015 and up, it would be second gen or a third gen. First gen obviously was in the S197s, but this is specific to a S550 because obviously that's what I have now. These are just things that I always look for when I'm trying to purchase a car. Generally more towards used. Now, I didn't buy this specific car used, I bought this new, sold the GT500, traded in my daily driver for this car. But if you're looking for S550 specifically, now obviously if you decide to purchase one, you got to get those used now, because obviously now the 24s are on the lots, unless you buy a really old new 2023, which I don't think you can even find those anymore. So these are just things that you should probably look out for in the market for S550s that you might not necessarily think of off the cuff, and possibly problems that might come up down the road if they're not thought of before you make the purchase. Okay, so first and foremost, specifically talking S550, so 2015 and up, that would be Gen 2 or Gen 3 Coyote. The first thing, if I'm in the market for a used car, that I always try to keep in mind is try to find one that is stock, or as stock as possible. There's a lot of reasons behind that, and I'll get to that in a second. One, for me, myself, is if it's stock, I know for a fact, well, not for a fact, there's a pretty good chance that that car wasn't beat on. The person that might have had the car necessarily was not a car person, or they just had it as a commuter car, or just to have it as just a car in general. But with the car as stock, there's a pretty good chance the car wasn't beat on and it wasn't abused. And it's just always better to keep in mind buying something stock for that reason. Now, if you do buy one that isn't necessarily stock, it has a few things on it. Let's take my car, for example. I have the Borla Attack exhaust. I have the, sorry, did I say Borla? That's what I had in the GT500. I have the Corsa Extreme exhaust, double X pipe, Corsa colder intake. It's lower than iBox Springs GT500 spoiler. So I have a few things on it, and it's got a Palm Beach tune on 93 and E85. Those two things I'll touch on also as well. With the tune aside, if there's a few mods to it, like it's lowered, it's got exhaust on it, probably would be okay, but you obviously bought it from somebody that is into cars and likes modifying the cars. So depending on the mileage and the modifications that done to the car, if you buy one that is modified, generally as little mods as possible is what I would generally recommend. Then secondly, as I said, try to buy one that has as low miles as possible. Now, if you're in the market for a used car, the mileage is not always guaranteed, but try to find something that is as low miles as possible. Now, the lower miles, you're going to be paying higher in price, but I'm a firm believer that you get what you pay for. The higher the miles, the more modifications you have on the car, the more wear and tear, just by the simple fact that it does have higher miles. The wear and tear that if it has modifications on it, the wear and tear just by whoever was abusing that car, combined with the higher miles, because you don't know how the car was treated before it got to you. So a few things to keep in mind in regards to that factor. So these cars have the option to have active exhaust or non-active exhaust. One thing that I would probably recommend for you to look for is try to find one that has active exhaust, because the non-active exhaust, like what came factory on my 22 Premium, it's not that great. It's not that loud. It's very, not a whole lot to be desired with the factory sound of the non-active exhaust. Now, I did put the Roush X pipe on it. That kind of helped out a little bit, but it really wasn't that great compared to the factory active exhaust that comes on these cars as an option. So that's the one thing I would recommend, is find one that has the active exhaust. Now, for me, I didn't look for one that had active exhaust because, one, I bought it brand new. Two, I was more concerned for myself finding the color of the car that I wanted, because I knew eventually I was going to switch out the exhaust anyway, because I felt for myself, if I could find a car that had active exhaust and it wasn't the color I liked, ultimately for myself, I'm more concerned with the color, because that is a lot easier to switch out than throwing a wrap on it or paint than just getting exhaust. So that's just me personally, because I bought it brand new and I like the Grabber Blue. Who doesn't like a Grabber Blue car? Now, the S550 was the first gen Coyote. That was the 11 through 14. Those weren't as strong, I guess you could say. They were not able to take as much of a beating as these cars can. You could throw a lot more power at the Gen 2s and Gen 3s. So in regards to the Gen 2s and Gen 3s, they're both great engines. They can take a beating. They can handle a lot of power. I haven't experienced this, but the couple things that I've heard in regards to the Gen 3s, if your car is past its time to get an oil change and you're going up and down the track, or you're at road course and you're just beating on the car and it's due for an oil change, this is just what I've heard. This isn't me specifically, but it'll go into like a limp mode from what I've heard with the Gen 3s, because it needs an oil change. It's just the computer being stupid. The Gen 2s haven't had that issue, but in regards to overall power, Gen 2s, Gen 3s, you could throw anything at these cars and they can handle a crap ton of power. So it's just, for myself, it comes down to the body lines and what you prefer, because the Gen 2s are a little bit different than the Gen 3s. I prefer the overall appearance of the Gen 3s. I just think they look more modern, I guess, and more up-to-date compared to the Gen 2s. All right, so since I'm in the front of the car here, one thing that I would probably is pretty important, specifically speaking for myself, is the quality of the paint. Now, there's not a whole lot you could do in regards to rock chips, if it's depending on how old the car is, but more along the lines of like swirls in the paints, spider webbing, that kind of thing. Quality of the paints, you can see pictures of the car on like a website and they hide a lot of that stuff on purpose until you see the car in person and you can be up close and you can see the quality of the paint. Quality of the paints, if it's bad, has swirls in it, scratches, that kind of shit, you got to get it paint corrected. If it's not already paint corrected already, if it is and it has ceramic coating, that's a plus. But if it's not, that's just more money that you have to spend on the car to correct shitty paint. So keep an eye on the quality of the paint. Obviously, scratches, swirls, that kind of stuff, always things to keep in mind. When on the inside of the car, when you're, keep an eye on the quality of the leather here on the side. If you got like a premium or a performance pack, not so much with the base of the cloth seats, because it does more affect the quality of the leather. You get a lot of wear and tear along here with people, the friction of going in and out of the car, the cracking, and you can definitely tell if that is an ongoing problem and it can't be fixed. It's only going to get worse. So keep an eye on that. Another thing too is if you're looking for like a GT350 or a 500, not so much with the GTs here, but if you have like the Alcantara on here, which mine obviously doesn't have, you got to look for a lot of the wear and tear. If you got the oils in your hand with Alcantara, it can really make that just look like shit. So just keep an eye on that if you do have a steering wheel that has Alcantara on it. And so much, not so much with this too, but it does put a lot of wear on the steering wheel depending on how much the car was driven. That goes along with the miles also as well. High miles on the car will probably equal more wear and tear on the inside of the car. So you're gonna want to find out if the car has a tune on it or not. This is also a reason why I bought the car new. I want to just do it all myself, start over with a fresh platform. If your car has a tune on it and you don't know who it's tuned from, you don't know how aggressive the tune is, you don't know all the details and the ins and out of it, unless obviously you do like a data log in the car. But it's just a hassle trying to find out who tuned the car. Does it have a tuner? Is it an X4 tuner? Is it an RTD? All that stuff. So it's always important to find out if the car has a tune on it. Hopefully it doesn't have a tune on it, so it's just one less thing for you to stress about and worry about. In regards to also the tune, example, mine's tuned on E85. Currently right now I have a 93 tune and E85 tune. I'm on E85. So let's say, for example, I decided today I wanted to go down and trade this in for a new 24, or just any car in general. But in regards to a Mustang, I could go trade this in right now on E85, and unless you can smell it, you know what E85 smells like, you're not going to know that the car is tuned on E85. So I could take this to a dealer. It's currently tuned on E85. I would probably switch it back from 85 to 93, but I currently have half a tank. I'd have to drain the tank down, swap it over, flash the 93 tune. Most people probably won't do that. I don't know how often that happens already on E85, but you could switch. You could trade the car in, tune it, have it currently on E85, and they won't know it's on E85, and they'll start throwing 93 on it on an E85 tune, and that'll throw everything out of whack also as well. That's another reason to buy stock tune, for possibilities like that that you might not be aware of. Secondly, or thirdly, or fourthly, or whatever, if you have one that you're interested in that has a supercharger on it or a turbo, most common is probably supercharger. It's not necessarily a bad thing to buy something like that, because those are expensive. So if you can find one that has a supercharger on it already, it's a win, because that's money that you don't have to spend if it was done and maintained and tuned properly. You just got to find out and do your research on that car. Hopefully the dealership knows all the ins and outs and the details of that, and if they don't know anything about that, and if it just looks like a shoddy job, the condition of the car is crap, something like that, I would walk away from. I would buy a stock GT over a modified GT with a blower on it, 800 plus horsepower. If the dealer doesn't have any information on the car, like who it's tuned from, how it was maintained, something like that, me personally, I would walk away from. It's just because these cars are an investment, and if you purchase something like that, high horsepower car, anything could happen. So me, I would walk away from. But if it's looks like it's a good situation, then yes, just make sure that you do research with that ahead of time. Another thing too is be specific as you go into this, what your goals are. That's going to obviously tie in with what your budget is and stuff like that. But if you're buying one for drag racing, beating the shit out of it, I would recommend going with like a base model. If you're looking to go for something that's more like drag racing but a daily driver, I got the premium. I got the 400A package premium. Now if you're going to do a lot of road racing and just something that has a lot more suspension components and better factory tires, that's also another thing I wanted to touch on too. The performance packs, they got better tires. So if you're wanting to get something that has more components based upon what your goals are, a performance pack might be a better option. Drag racing, daily driver, drag racing on the weekends, that sort of thing, maybe a premium is a better option, because that could be a difference of $10,000 to $15,000 depending on condition and miles, going from a base model to a performance pack. So all depending on what your goals are, tied obviously with your budget, but the big difference between base and performance pack dependent on what your overall goals are with the car. All right, that's all I have. I hope that helps for anyone that's in the market for specifically a Gen 2, Gen 3 Coyote. Things to look for that you might not think about off the bats, and something to keep in mind when you're in the market to buy a car. So if you guys are watching this, as I said, if you're not subscribed, please do me a favor. I mentioned closer and closer to 2,000. Please consider hitting subscribe, drop a like and a comment. And as always, I will catch you in the next video. See ya.